Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. There's been a trend in comedy for well over a century at least, and I think it's time it comes to an end. I'm not talking about cancel culture here, but at the same token, the whole narrative of I hate my spouse, they're the worst person in the world, and they do all this stupid crap. This has to come to an end. First place, there's not that many original jokes in it. Like, yeah, new things happen all the time, but it's literally one person abusing another. It gets a laugh, and a lot of the stories, I'm sure, are somewhat factual. But when they get repeated to the point where they're fodder for stand up comedians, I don't know if it's proper for us to be normalizing that anymore. Whether you're common law, whether you're married according to religious ceremony or a civil ceremony, you're supposed to love, honor, and, depending on the version, cherish your significant other. All relationships are going to have problems. Let's get that straight right away. And not all relationships are perfectly equal. Ideally, it's a 50-50 split, but let's be honest. There's a few couples we look at, it's like, why are these two together? The fact is, it works for them. If in your relationship you are so, what's a good word, dissatisfied that it drives you to write jokes, it drives you to write material just based off your marital inequity, you shouldn't be performing jokes. You should be seeing a therapist. And to be honest, the sooner you get there, the better. Now, that's not to say you can never make fun of your spouse. No. There's sometimes my wife, she's just learning to drive a car now. It was never something that she learned earlier. She recently got her license. I'm very proud of her. But when she's still learning to back up. There's not a person on this planet that's learned to back up straight away and got it right every time. Now, my joke with her, I haven't told anybody else besides you, my audience, and my wife this. My joke with her is get off my lawn. I'm going to need to buy sod to redo that grass. And it's just because when she's pulling out, she's not sure exactly how straight the car is, and she's doing the best she can to keep it on the road. It's part of the learning curve. I'd way rather she put her tires on the grass or whatever it is in my driveway than she did at the local parking lot, than she did it wherever it is. Now, get off my lawn thing, that's a little in joke. She only saw Gran Torino a little bit ago, and it was a bit of a confusing movie for her because she didn't grow up in that culture. But she does still think, Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn. She still thinks that's funny. So even though it is technically me, it's just me doing what lovers do. Aside from my studio audience, I haven't told anybody. I started to say, okay, that's going to be, $1 in sod to fix it. Oh, that's $2, that's $3. And I realized, no, that's not a good thing. It makes her feel obligated to me for her mistakes. And it goes into that abusive joke territory. Whereas, get off my lawn, she knows I'm not Clint Eastwood. She knows I don't have anything to point at her other than a finger. Although, come to think of it, he did use a finger in that movie. But you see, I could probably tell a joke along those lines and have the audience in stitches. I'm choosing not to. I'm using it as an example. Every couple has things that drive each other nuts. A successful couple works through them. They don't sit back and complain. And again, I exempt therapy from this because there has to be some form of complaint and resolution to proceed with therapy. A therapist isn't going to know what to do if you just sit there and, what's wrong with your marriage? I don't know. Well, then why did you come here? I don't know. But jokes, and there are comedians that have built their entire career off this style of joke telling. Rodney Dangerfield, not the most popular comedian, not the worst. He at least split it up between, my wife is so terrible, my mother-in-law is so terrible, I got no respect. He split it up because if he just sat there and complained about his spouse all day, he knew he wouldn't have an audience. But we all know that person, whether through work, whether through our social circles, whatever the situation may be, that basically all they do is, my spouse jokes. Oh, they're so terrible. I hate that. I think that was even an American Dad segment where Roger and Francine, I believe are the characters' names, were trying to play a happy couple, and they got into revealing each other's supposed secrets and making fun of each other. And it got into comical violence, but at the same token, you can understand it. They wrote the joke from a new perspective and made it funny because the characters themselves knew they were pretending, and they still chose to go forward with it. But I'm afraid, well, while comedians do invent some material, it is a symptom of what they see. Steve Hofstetter, one of my favorite comedians, and most of his stuff is based around what he says and what he sees. And he only mentioned his former wife in a very respectful manner. Like, she's the one that convinced him to stop drinking. But he would zip in and out of that really fast. And he's getting married again, and he isn't doing, my wife is so terrible jokes, because he realizes it's a dead end situation. It's something that's not going to benefit him, it's not going to benefit his family, and the audience is only going to stay tuned in for a certain amount of time. He's more funny when he's doing observations. Unfortunately, marriage is something that most of us will go through in life, and even those who don't go through the rites and rituals of being married or even being with somebody. I'm looking at asexuals, I'm looking at people that don't want to commit to a formal ceremony, or even we know enough to know things about relationships. And relationships are not always equal. That's the fundamental principle of every single my spouse joke. We're not equal. And you're generally portraying yourself as superior. Some people do the other way around where, they're the idiot and their wife the smart one. Tim Allen comes to mind. Again, not one of my favorite comedians, but I can't deny the cultural impact that he had. In sitcoms, for example, and indeed in most relationships that we see on television and on film, they do portray the protagonist, generally, as the less intelligent one of the two, because it gives them a dynamic to work off of. I don't know whether an equal 50-50 couple would work, but the same token, we've tried everything else. We've tried single families, single parent families, we've tried, every other iteration on the 2S LGBTQ spectrum. We've worked with all that. We've tried people of different races and a couple together, but the same jokes come up. Oh, my wife. Oh, my husband. They're so blank. It's all the same. No matter the window dressing you set around it, it's still ludicrous. And it sets a bad example. Like I said, I appreciate these jokes are not going to go away. But maybe they could be innovated a little bit. Maybe they could be, instead of making fun of a spouse, maybe you can make fun of a made up friend. It's not that big of a jump from spouse to friend. So, with that, I'll give you something to think about because it's just unfair that these jokes have been formulated and, I guess, appreciated for so long. It's time for that to end. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, because sharing is caring. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Please kick the button. Kick the button. if you're mad enough because somebody was telling spouse jokes, kicking the button would be understandable. But click the icon, the bell icon down below, so that way you can be notified every single time we publish a new episode. We hope you have a fantastic